Okay, Lyla, thank you for coming out to talk with us today. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Okay. I'm Lyla Corkern, and thanks for having me. I own Finding Solace. It's a counseling agency. We're based out of West Monroe, but thank goodness with the help of telehealth, we can serve across the whole state. We have 20, we just hired a bunch of people, so I'll probably get the number wrong, but we have about 22 counselors and then a stellar administrative staff, and each of the counselors do and specialize and have passions in all sorts of different areas. Our goal is not to be the group that's known for that thing. Our goal is to be the place that's known as the place you call when you need help, regardless of what you need help with or for. And so we want to make sure we have as many people as possible to serve different needs and different personalities and really be a good fit. But if for whatever reason nobody's a good fit or we're not best suited to serve your needs, we want to create, be a hub to be able to refer those people out to get the help that they need.
That's awesome. So why don't you back up a little bit and tell us how you got started? So when did you found this company?
I was like, 45,000 years ago. I founded Finding Solace in 2014. I graduated from ULM MFT program in 2010.
What program?
The ULM Marriage and Family Therapy.
Okay.
Sorry. And I did a little bit of everything. I worked in home and in inpatient hospitals and group work and all sorts of outpatient intensive settings and things. And I just never really found my niche that was a place where I felt like I could serve my clients the way I wanted to serve my clients.
What do you think was missing during that time?
I think it was a bunch of things. I think you have to find the place that you want to work that has the right leadership fit, the same cultural values, the same priorities, whatever. And there were a couple that didn't work out because of life circumstances. And so what I really wanted was the freedom to just be and see and prioritize the person I'm in the room with, regardless of anything else. So regardless of what they were coming in for, who referred them, what medication I could have them on, what diagnosis I could, or what insurance I would bill, or whatever. I wanted to just see the person. And so I felt like there was always layers from different levels of agency work. There were always something else that I had to consider or work with or deal with or whatever. And so, it just made sense. It was the next step.
You know, when you and I got connected, it was through real estate. We helped you sell a house, and we found a house that you and your husband fell in love with. But through that time, I want to say it was 2019, 2020, probably closer to 2020. And I'm looking back now at where you started from and just seeing the massive growth. And I wouldn't say it was overnight growth. I mean, it was definitely work you had to put into it. But the growth that you've experienced from an entrepreneur standpoint, from a business owner, tell me a little bit about how so when you made that transition from working from someone else for someone else and to saying, you know what, I think my clients deserve more. Not saying that what other people are doing wrong. It's just not what you felt like was a right fit for you. Right. How did you make that switch going from, I think we're going to step out and make our own?
I'm going to be totally honest in that wasn't, the final decision was mine, but that ultimately wasn't my recommendation for myself. So I just had one of those career crisis, fork in the road moments, right? And I had to decide, am I going to go try another place? Am I going to go do this other thing? Or what's next? And I honestly would not have Finding Solace at all if it wasn't for my best friend and my husband that said, well, of course you're going to go do your own thing, and of course you can do that. What do you mean? Of course that's the natural step. Of course that's your decision. And almost like I was crazy for thinking it was crazy. And so leap of faith and their commitment to help me figure it out and to do it. My best friend is now my director of operations at Finding Solace, and I'm forever grateful for her encouragement. It was an interesting conversation of, if you keep looking for this thing that doesn't exist, why don't you create it?
Right.
And so, okay. For me, it was more about I had a full caseload at the time, and if I wasn't going to be able to stay there, those clients needed help somewhere, and many of them didn't want to transfer to somewhere else. And so I felt the pull of like, well, I have to figure this out because I have to continue seeing these people and they need my help. So from the day I made the decision to like our first day of being open was 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it was crazy, and there were a lot of late nights pulling up carpet and all sorts of things, but it was a beautiful blood, sweat, and tears moment.
So your director of operations now, was with you from the very beginning?
Yep, she pulled up that carpet with me.
Wow. So when you first started, sounds like you had to have that little push to get out and make it happen. But once you made the decision that we're bought and sold, we're going to make this happen, kind of lay out how your process kind of grew over time. Was it just all butterflies and rainbows right outside the box, or did you have some challenges you had to overcome to be able to see growth happen?
I'm going to say both, to be honest. I think, so our goal, Jesse and I, my director of operations and I, our goal was to work for ourselves and not to be under anyone else's lens that I mentioned earlier. Like, we wanted to just create the space that we envisioned, do it our way, prioritize the clients, and have the autonomy and freedom to have family time and do whatever we needed to do at the time, or whatever we felt was our priority at the time.
Sure.
And so that worked for a long time. It was probably, I want to say, a year and a half that we were just trucking, and we just saw our clients and we had fun on the weekends. And I feel like she might have had a kid and I didn't have a kid yet, and we just lived life, and it was cool. We were, the hearts and rainbows and butterflies was, we didn't have to do a lot of marketing, which was, in hindsight, insanely beautiful, that the natural word of mouth kind of spread, and it sustained us enough. We weren't trying to get bigger or bolder or anything. We weren't trying to be like a household name. It was just keep walking that direction and do right by people, and it kind of naturally worked out. But then at some point in late 2015, early 2016, counselors started reaching out to us and saying, like, hey, I hear great things about y'all. Like, can I come work with you? Or are you interested in bringing on other people? And to be totally honest, not knowing anything about management or leadership or anything, I kind of looked at Jess and said, I mean, should we? It wasn't much more thought besides they say they want to help people too. So let's do it, and let's bring it on, and let's figure it out. So then the trials and tribulations out of that was over the next probably 2 or 3 years, figuring out what management and leadership looks like in a company that I wanted to be independent in, and how to merge those worlds together, kind of. And so, to be honest, I don't, like, in my brain, we have like a pre-business, a warm-up business, if it were, and then what we've been doing in the last probably 3.5 years, which is when people kind of noticed that trajectory, was when we hit this kind of crossroads of we've grown so much, but also we've never defined our business plan. We've never defined what our plan for growth is. We've never defined what different roles are. Like,
so how many years into business would you say that you kind of had that epiphany? It's like, so we're doing it, we're growing, but we have no idea what our plan really is.
I want to say probably 5 years. So the best, COVID, for all of its pain and agony, was probably the best thing that happened to my business for multiple reasons.
Sure.
Obviously, like the mental health side, and we'll probably talk about that later, but from a business entrepreneurship standpoint, it made me get out of the way. Like, I wasn't there to have my hand in, or my opinion in, or my conversation in all of the different things. And then I also wasn't there to bail out or rescue whatever fires popped up. And they all had to naturally find ways to evolve for themselves, right? So the biggest shift was, that's the first time Jess actually took on some sort of role, and I think, to be honest, I think we made up what to call it, but it was the person. So
did that just kind of naturally happen, or is like it was just she just kind of took charge in that area, or is that something y'all said, well, you know what, well, we got to figure this out. We're going to need someone kind of directing this versus me directing that?
I think it was it was the epiphany of we have to have streamlined, scalable, replicable procedures and policies, and me saying that is not my strength. I am adaptable and will put up a whack-a-mole fire all day long, but I cannot sit and have some strategic, consistent planning. But that's her.
But you knew you needed it, though,
and
right?
and I went, well, wait, I have this person already, and so I believe, God, it feels like a million years ago, but we had some conversations of these are the things that we need to iron out, and this is officially going to be your baby. This is going to be your title. I'm going to tell everybody to ask you, and then if you need me for some of the collaboration and development, then tell me. And we just saw exponential stability, let alone growth, almost immediately, because it gave consistency with where to look and what to do. And so it wasn't, that's when we quit winging it, is what I feel like. And so I feel like that was probably 2020 through COVID. And so we had been in business 5.5, 6 years.
So 2020 happens, lockdown occurs. You're in a business that has been primarily, I would have to assume, is face-to-face. So you're sitting there having conversations with people. Now you can't have direct conversations. Did you ever have that thought like, oh, my word, we're fixing to go belly up because nobody can come in here anymore? Or did you kind of see on the horizon that the telehealth was going to help you power through some of this?
I think this is where, in looking at like the strengths I mentioned earlier, like my adaptability just took charge, and I went, okay, we'll figure it out. And so that's kind of my MO in life, is I say yes and then I figure it out later. And so I remember saying, okay, does everybody have enough stuff to do telehealth like for next week? Like, let's make sure that next week your clients have care and we can figure this out. And then we also had that weird 2-week where most of the clients thought, well, we're at home for 2 weeks. We're just going to take a therapy break. The ones that weren't in needing some high level like involvement, and we're just going to take a break and then we'll see you in 2 or 3 weeks. And then with time, we realized that wasn't going to be the case. But I feel like in my brain at the time, I thought, or my reassurance to myself or whatever, my adaptability said, well, we have 2 weeks to figure this out. That's plenty of time. And so I just made sure everybody has the computer, the laptop, the webcam, the whatever that they needed to be able to reach out to whoever still needed the support. And then we'd figure it out later.
So great segue into, we're talking about COVID. COVID, I think, really changed the dynamic of how people perceive mental health. I think it. I don't want to come across someone that is educated enough to explain mental health to somebody, or what it's done to our nation, what COVID confining people. But I've experienced firsthand, just with customers and just general public, that there were some major effects when you take people out of their normal routine and you put them inside and tell them you can't really go anywhere. They end up thinking about probably a lot of the things that they don't want to think about on a daily basis, because they just don't have all that clutter of life to keep them distracted. And I really think it brought people out front of that mental health is not necessarily a dirty word anymore, and that it is okay to go talk to somebody, to have a professional help you through some of that. What's been some of your experience with that?
So the only thing I loved about COVID is there was probably the first 6 months where it became the world's best scapegoat, that people could call in droves and say, I need therapy because of COVID.
Yeah.
And yes, there was plenty of therapy that was needed because of COVID. But also, once they got in the door and said, oh, well, this isn't what I thought it was, or this isn't so bad, or that whatever, getting deeper into it, they realized, oh, but I actually need it because of COVID, because like what you said, I'm stuck with my thoughts and I can't escape this anymore. Or I'm now at home with my kid 24/7 and I'm realizing like that I don't cope that well with those kind of feelings. Or I'm realizing new things about my relationship or whatever, to where people could have those issues, but then say, well, I need therapy because COVID has me stressed out. And so there was such a door kicking open of people being able to freely say that they were getting counseling, because it didn't have to be some personal failure on their own part.
Absolutely.
It was an outside thing that happened to them that then made it okay.
Yeah.
And so then, well, my sister did it because of COVID, and then, well, now I need it too, but it's okay because she's already doing it. So it lowered the taboo
Sure.
accidentally, right? It wasn't some sort of campaign to increase mental health care or mental health advocacy or anything. It just was something that kind of naturally opened up doors and slowed down and closed down stigma.
Yeah, there's people I would have never thought would have mustered the courage to ask for help or go seek to talk to a counselor. And sometimes we use big words like therapy. I mean, it sounds very clinical and that I got problems, but just going and talk to a counselor to kind of work through some yucky stuff that may be in your life. And it's not necessarily you have to have a bad marriage or there's massive things wrong. Sometimes it's great just to go in before something little becomes massive so you can have a professional help walk you through it. And that's kind of been one of the things I've been most impressed with that's come out of this. And I know that's going on, and I see how, I don't know how you rank in our local area, but man, if you're not one of the largest places in town, you got to be in the very top. It's just really blown my mind to see how you have built what you have. And then the advocacy that you have of, kind of putting things out there. And I hope you're okay with this. I mentioned to you, I may bring it up, but nowadays it kind of takes a lot to kind of put me back on my heels. Because, I mean, just with social media, you get to see and you get to hear so much, and people's filters apparently are gone nowadays. And there was a post that was made on social media that was very negative towards you in that post. And the response that you had to that, to those people, it really put me back on my heels because, we all look at social media as it's a platform to do X. For me and my business, it's a platform for me to communicate with customers of what's happening. That's where the eyeballs are at, so that's where we need to communicate a lot of times. But other people want to look at it as highlight reels for their life, and they want to show all the fun stuff. Nobody wants to put the ugly stuff that's out there. Something ugly happened to you from someone, and you easily could have taken that down, and it would have just been gone. Nobody would have said anything about it. But you chose to leave it up and address it in such a way that I thought that, you got these internet bullies that are out there, but maybe it's going to have them think the next time before they do something that there's a real person on the other end of that computer screen. How did that affect you when that happened? Is that the first time you've dealt with that?
So, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Let me not take too much accolade about it because it took me a while to get there. There have been, I think that most people would say that the more recognition or reputation or whatever you have, the more people that know you, the more room there is for people to judge you, right? And so there has been this exponential kind of correlation between the more involved I get or the bigger the business gets or more successful we are, the more of those sort of incidents happen. But over the last 2 or 3 years, I would say, those things happen pretty regularly, and it's out of nowhere, and it always is something that doesn't make sense, and it's just to do it, right? And to where it's not, I know that it's not somebody that I've personally had conflict with,
Sure.
right? There's just this thing that somebody wants to say something lousy and then stir up something or hit someone negatively and then disappear. And so that had happened regularly for the last few years. And we had either, I did my own personal kind of reconciliation with it and coped with all the feelings that each one of them brought up that were very different because they weren't all the same theme, right? It wasn't all about weight or about whatever. But then it was always well, let's remove it because we don't want to give them a platform for the negativity. And that was what I thought for a really long time. I don't want to open the door for them to think it's okay for them to do this, so we're going to remove it. I honestly don't know why this one landed totally different. I remember I was laying in bed, and I had done a million things that day, like personal, professional. It was one of those days where I'm running and gunning, and it was like 10:30 at night, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to scroll social media and like turn my brain down, and I'm going to pass out, and like this is the end of the day, you know? And I usually I don't think about it that much, but that day I was looking forward to almost like the doom scrolling, right? And that was one of the first things that I saw, and I just stopped. It stopped me in my tracks for a while, and then I got very upset, which in hindsight I think was fatigue because of the day that I had, and it was just, you know, it knocked me sideways. And I was really upset, and then I got really numb and defeated about, here we go again, and here's another one, and it is what it is, and whatever. And then at some point I looked at my husband and I said, can you hand me my laptop? And he looked at me like I was crazy and said, it's 11 o'clock. You're working right now? And I was like, no, I just have something I got to do, you know? And I just had enough, I guess, to be totally honest. I had enough of them because who knows who or how many or whatever, but like of people like that, feeling like they can act like that to other people and then just fade into the night. Like I just had enough finally, and I went, if I feel like this, how many other people are you doing this to? Because I don't even know you. So like, who else are you messing with? And because of the post that they commented on that was layered involvement with like chambers of commerce and a local restaurant and all sorts of things, I was like, they kind of gave me the perfect opportunity to just really say something that actually is true to my message of like, of openness and like, I'm happy to get to know you if you really want to get to know me kind of thing. And that's true to me and my priorities, but also put a stop sign up at the same time. Like, whoa. If you want to get to know me, we can do that. But if not, like, you can go over there kind of thing. What shocked me about the whole thing was I kind of thought it would just be the thing I thought it would just be a simple Facebook post, and then to see, especially my team, who like, it goes without saying that none of the success we have would happen without the insanely talented, incredible team that I have. But then to see the team react so fiercely in my defense and created like hashtags and all sorts of things that I just didn't even know what to do with it, because I didn't ever anticipate anything like a reaction like that of advocacy for me would happen. I feared that it was going to be a finger point and shame on you. And the fact that it turned into this battle cry of like, let's treat each other better was just amazing.
You know, it's one of the things, I got 2 young girls at home, and one of the things that scares me is that when they get old enough to where their mom and I decide to let them have a cell phone or access to a device with internet connection, that just the harm that social media can do. I think it's a great platform, but with anything in life, it can be used as a weapon for abuse. And in this case it was, but the way that you handle, there's no doubt that it didn't sting or that you didn't have to process it. But the path you chose to go for, I think, was very inspirational, not only to me, but to many others, to be able to push back in an appropriate way to let people know that this is not okay. You know, we can have discussion, we can agree and we can disagree on things, but we can be civil about it. And my first reaction is, what is paining this person so much to where they feel like they have to do it? Because we know that's typically what happens to a bully. They're acting out because of some pain or distraction in their life that's occurring. So, I mean, I think you did good for our community by putting it out there, and I think you've seen the response that's come from a bunch of others. Let's pivot to a question, and I didn't know. I think there was an article came out in the Ouachita Citizen about a new organization that you were named to. It's got 100 in. I apologize.
C100.
Yes. Tell me about that.
So I do think, like, connecting all of this together, I do think that part of the reason that we've been successful is my yes and figure it out later. I'm getting better about like, let me make sure I can do that, and I say yes now. But for the end of 2020 until the end of last year, probably, it was just a say yes, lean in, learn everything you can, connect with anyone you can, and try to be the best leader, owner, entrepreneur, teammate, whatever that you can be. And so from that, there were several things that occurred that then, like the most recent one is C100. But even going back so far as to, I remember getting an email that looked like spam that said, sign up for this free program. It's 4 months long. You'll walk out with a 5-year growth plan. We're going to do all these things. We'll fly you to New York, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what?
Sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, that's insane. And then like the second step to apply was to give them like your financials. And I was like, this is the best scam I've ever seen, And so looking into it, I did research it more, and it wasn't a scam. And I ended up going through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And it was fascinating that it ended up being like a mini MBA. It was like a crash course MBA, and it gave you all the tools to reevaluate everything that you're currently doing, and then literally write out this 5-year, I think mine was 65 pages of what the next 5 years are going to hold. And the confidence and clarity that comes out of that really set a trajectory. And so walking out of that, it was, how can we make sure we can help as many people as possible? And that gave us a different lens, because it was making sure that we had the resources to provide for them correctly, the formats to provide for them correctly, all these things. And then from there, doing that program at the same time, I did Systems for Integrated Growth, which is through Louisiana Economic Development, which is a wonderful free program that I don't think enough, just like Goldman, that I don't think enough people in Northeast Louisiana take advantage of. But they gave us basically one-on-one access to all these experts in all these different pain point fields that we had, that we didn't know anything about marketing because we hadn't really had to before. And we didn't know anything about succession planning because honestly, we had never been big enough that I was worried about it.
Sure.
So all of these resources that just poured information at our feet. And so going through that, I got more involved with Louisiana Economic Development, like LED, and all the programs that they do. And through that, I'm trying to even remember a timeline in my head, but I went to the Edward Lowe Foundation through LED for several different retreats and trainings and programs, and a mentorship program that was really exponentially helpful to me. And then, I think over time it turned into, okay, my role is changing now to a place of not just advocating for my clients, but I have to advocate for my clients, my team, and my community at large. And how do I do that? And realizing that through Goldman, through SIG, through all these things, whenever I brought up those programs, people in our area went, oh, that's real? Or, oh, I've never heard of that. Or what is that about? Or how much is that going to cost me? Or it just was underutilized, all the things. And so I leaned into how do I give voice to all these opportunities to people? And so the first thing that came up was National Small Business Association Leadership Council, where they pick, I believe their goal is 2 people for every congressional district, and then as representatives nationally to talk about small business and small business needs and small business advocacy, and that's everything from taxes to policy to whatever. And that was my first kind of drop in the bucket of what that even looks like. I don't know anything about policy and taxes and all the things. Like, I have a CPA for that. Like, I don't know anything about that.
This is Lyla. I created this business without a plan. We're just going to say yes to everything.
Right. And so it was amazing to hear these people that had similar levels of passion, but about very different things. Like, to hear someone be so keyed up about tax reform was just amazing to me, to have all these different passion points.
As a business owner, I mean, you get to see firsthand that You feel like you're making a good living, and then it's time to pay taxes, and like, man, where
Right.
does it all go?
Right, right. And so, yeah, it was really, so that was my first kind of exposure, and I'm still obviously on the leadership council. And so having those sort of meta level to see how other states do it compared to how Baton Rouge does it, compared
Right.
to how NELA does it, is very interesting to me. And then getting involved in other, becoming a board member of the Chamber of Commerce has been
Right.
amazing to me to see how many powerful people we have in this area that are, again, underutilized. Like,
And willing to help,
we
right?
get right, yeah, that we could do so much more with a combined effort. And so that's just been my thing lately. So whether that's in my office of realizing there's 22 clinical staff here that all have different expertise and all have different passions, so why don't we just lean in and pour into each other? Because how many more people could we help, and how much better could we help if we all leaned in and maximized that potential? It's the same when it comes to business. And so one of my friends, dear friends that I met through one of the LED programs, recommended me, nominated me. I don't honestly know how it works, to be on committee of 100. And so that's an organization out of Baton Rouge that is, it's the same thing. It's a group of people that have established businesses. I'm probably the smallest fish in that ocean.
Yeah, because when I was looking it up, I mean, there's some big names that are part of this.
It's impressive. It's intimidatingly impressive for me. But I've loved every second because to be honest, and I've told many of the board members of C100 that I was so pleasantly surprised by that experience, because there's plenty of rooms that I've been in where they say, come on, like, come to this thing and we'll help you out. We'll hear out what's going on, whatever. And then they go, oh, that's cute. And then that was a waste of an afternoon, right?
Sure.
And so they said, come down to the fall meeting, meet everybody, get a vibe, see if it's a good fit for you. And within 15 minutes, I had 3 people offering to help different pain points in my business, and people that actually had the legs to do that. And it was incredible. So to see this group of people with the weight to throw behind the advocacy and to be amongst them, to be considered to be amongst them, was just phenomenal. And so it's been really incredible. I went to DC Mardi Gras through C100 and got briefings from all sorts of politicians and different policymakers and things. And to have a voice at those kind of tables has been so incredible. And then recently I joined Elevate Louisiana, which is women in business, basically. And it feels to me very similar, that it's all about advocacy for small business and for women in business and all these things. And so we talk about tax reform and healthcare reform, but lately we've been talking about like PTO reform, because how does that need to change? And
Sure.
It's just been so interesting, because no matter what it is, there's a mental health aspect that comes up and that I get to speak to, and it's humbling, honestly.
So what I'm hearing from you is that if a small business owner or just an entrepreneur trying to get started, if they want the help is available. All they have to do is lean in. The seat at the table is very large, and they just have to be able to get involved. The other thing that I hear from you is that people are welcoming to you. They have seen what you have to offer. They are not scared of mental health like they used to be.
Right.
And you're doing big things. You know, a lot of people don't realize that Northeast Louisiana is built on the back of small businesses. We don't have any major industry here. But if you really get down to it, we have international companies that are right here in Northeast Louisiana that do business worldwide. So we have a lot to offer in our community. And one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast to make it about our community is that I love it so much that I want the best for it. I think we got 2 great leaders on both sides of the river that are working hard to try to bring economic development to our area. And we have a lot to offer people. We graduate a lot of people out of the 3 local universities that we have, and they want to go off to other areas to start their careers. And I think it's time to stop letting those kids or young adults leave, and let's just show them what we have to offer here.
I had a lot of people ask me, like, why stay here, let alone why set up here, right? But now you're established and you have all of your policies, procedures. You know, you could trademark, you could franchise, you could go do and live wherever you want and set one up wherever. I think it goes back to like, but if they saw behind the curtain of all of the things that are available, then why do I have to some degree? And then I also think like looking at the people that like new graduates that I just had I was on a panel discussion at ULM a couple of weeks ago about getting started in your career and company culture and what are you looking for in your job. And all of them, like this panel of incredible students, said that they were looking to make an impact and they wanted to find the place in their industry, their field of study, that they could make the most impact. And that there was this trend of like, but there's nothing here or there's not opportunity here. And I think I have a challenge twofold. I think I have a challenge of like, we'll make sure that there's not anything available here because there might be something you just don't know about. But also, if you know very clearly what it is that you want and what opportunity you're looking for, why don't you build it? Like, why don't you bring it here? Or why don't you create it here? Or if you're looking for it, someone else is looking for it.
Partner with
so
someone
make
to do it
here.
together.
Right.
So I think we have a lot to offer our community, and I just want you to know I'm totally impressed with what I see going on, and
I appreciate that.
you know the culture has to be great for people that will want to stay with your organization. And I know a lot of people that work there, and I know the caliber of people they are. So it just goes to emphasize that much more that whatever you guys are doing, it's working. I'm proud to have you as a friend and as a local business owner in our community, and can't wait to see what the next few years has in store for you.
I appreciate that so much. Thanks for having me today. This was fun.
Thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.